Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Moving Forward. I am your host Kayla Garza and
I'm Leilani Squires.
Today we have a really fun show for you guys to kick off 2014. We're going to be talking about the do's and the don'ts in the workplace.
So our articles we're going to be looking at are Boss Labels Employee Underachiever for this.
7 bad emails you need to avoid sending.
And 5 challenges women entrepreneurs face and how to overcome them.
We'll also give you some tips on what you can wear in the workplace, what's appropriate, what's maybe not. So definitely check it out. So Leilani, you had an interesting article off LinkedIn that's causing a little bit of controversy I saw in the comments. So
yes,
go ahead and tell us about this.
This one is Boss Labels Employee Underachiever for this, and you can find it on LinkedIn. It explains or tells a story about a manager who contacted this writer about how she was so frustrated and angry at this one employee who, when she gave a project to this employee, she's like, "Oh, good, thank you. I didn't have anything really to do. I was really light on my workload."
Yeah.
And the
Which
manager
seems innocent enough. The
yeah,
comment.
it really does. And she's showing appreciation, which is what I took as a manager, that she was showing appreciation for having to be trusted with more work.
Exactly.
But the manager took it very negatively, and she was not impressed by this employee having just kind of waited for a project to come along sometime, somehow.
Right.
So this article goes into kind of a who's to blame here. Is it the boss? Is it the employee? How do you keep it as a win-win situation? It's a really good article. I highly recommend managers and employees read this.
Definitely.
So it talks a bit about, is the boss to blame, is the first part about it. Is it the manager's fault for not checking in too much? But on the other hand, the manager, to correct this, is now meeting with this employee every day, and
So
now she
maybe
feels like she's
overcompensating.
babysitting. And so there's too much and too little. So
Right.
how do you find that balance? So when I was reading this, I thought it was really interesting how she balanced out how it was the boss and the employee that need to kind of come together, set expectations together. The employee does need to come forward with, my workload is pretty light. Is there anything else I can be doing? I really appreciated about this article that it says we are in an all-together business.
Right.
This is not just me waiting for it to be dictated to.
Right.
We are together as a team.
Especially nowadays.
Yeah.
With the work culture.
I really appreciated that. I was just wondering, of the two sides, though, who do you think needs to take more initiative?
I felt like after I read the article, I felt like the boss maybe from the get-go should have told the employee, hey, this is what I expect from you. If you ever find that you have a lull in your workload, come to me and I'll give you more. So there was definitely a communication breakdown there. So I could see both sides easily. I do think she was just making the comment offhandedly. She wasn't trying to dig herself in a hole, but it's just another example of you just have to watch what you say and how you say it. And so the do on this one is...
The tips I really liked. One is when you've got time on your hands, let your boss know. So have that. That means, though, that bosses need to have that open door policy. Be approachable. Let your employees know that you are willing to interact with them on more than just I have a problem stage.
Right.
Second, create a list of projects you want to work on so you can have some say in what you do. This reminded me of when I was an intern supervisor. An intern came to me with a full page of projects that he was going to complete by the time his internship was done.
Wow.
I didn't ask for it.
That's
I
great.
didn't assign it. He just, in the beginning of his internship, said, this is what I'm going to take care of.
Wow.
Another one said, I know will have these assignments from you coming, but in between, this is what I'm going to do when I have a lighter workload. So they already had set in a plan what they were going to do, whether that be extra training, whether that be new projects, some day-to-day projects that nobody really wanted to do.
Right.
So they had that way of, here's my list, this is what I'm going to do. And then, because I had a copy, I could check in every so often. Not all the time, but just know what they were doing.
So I
that
wonder
was really appreciated.
how that came about. Do you think maybe the teachers prepped them and told them, hey, you're never going to want to be sitting there twiddling your thumbs. Maybe have a document ready.
I don't know where it came from. I should ask, because I'm actually married to the guy who did it. But I was very impressed. It showed a lot of initiative. And I knew, as being the intern supervisor in that situation, that I was going to have to kind of babysit in a little bit of a way. It's an internship. You're expecting there to be a lot more teaching going on. But because they made that initiative, it really made them stand out from the other interns.
Right.
So having that show of, I'm not expecting you to always babysit me, but this is what you can know I'm doing.
Yeah.
So it was that communication. The third is make sure the projects all save or make the company money in some way. So again, we're together as a team. How can we as a team, even in my slow time, be moving the company forward?
I saw a quote, I think it was on Twitter. It said, "You don't work for a company, you work with a company." And so just with that tip, if you can have that mindset,
Yeah, I was talking too about how our focus needs to be constantly be creating a win-win partnership. It's not that you're working for your boss, you're working with. You are providing a service. You're the customer of the boss. So or the boss is your customer, sorry. Your boss is your customer, so how can you be meeting their needs the best way? So as an employee, you need to have that in mind. So what other suggestions would you have with this list?
The only thing that comes to mind is for managers to keep an open mind and don't necessarily think that just because they don't have a lot going on doesn't mean that they're not working hard. Maybe they're just very efficient. They've gotten to a point where they've figured out a good system and they can work quicker than someone else. You can't really compare one person to another as far as time management in some ways.
Personality does play into it.
So that's what I would say. Just keep an open mind and
understand too that there could be times where you're going to be working really, your seasons are going to come and go.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to be really, really hard and really, really fast sometimes.
Yep.
And then allow for a little bit of a slower time to just kind of recover, kind of regroup.
Yeah.
And then ease back into having a better workload in preparation for that. Yeah. But especially if you're running a business where you know these seasons are coming, be preparing your employees so that they are working ahead, so that they are better using their time, so that they're not swamped either.
Very true. Leilani, have you ever gotten an email and wondered what the heck that person was possibly thinking?
Yes,
several times. I think we all have. So this article is about 7 bad emails you need to avoid sending, and this is from a website called Time Management Ninja. So they have some pretty cool stuff there. So we all know email is an amazing tool when used correctly. It's also one of the biggest time wasters in some companies. She gives an example of an email that she received from someone saying that it was an urgent email. And this was something that needed an immediate solution to the problem, like right away within minutes. So she said this was not a good email because when it's something that's in a time crunch, you should pick up the phone or if you can, walk down the hall. So you agree with that?
Yes.
I would definitely have to agree as well.
You cannot guarantee that person is behind that desk.
Exactly.
Looking at their screen at that time.
I think we get lucky because we have our email up a lot, but a lot of companies and a lot of the higher up you are, you have to put boundaries on yourself where you're not constantly checking your email. So maybe you only check it in the morning and then before you leave.
Exactly.
So he got lucky that she read that email. So instead of sending an email, she actually says that you could call, text, tweet, or anything more immediate.
Tweet, really?
Tweet.
I'm surprised with that one.
So I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the best method to get an answer right away?
If they're in the building, go to them. Try to find them in person. But because you have a better guarantee of actually getting an answer and processing it right there if you need to.
Right.
Especially if they have a question or something. But if that's not possible, pick up the phone.
Pick up the phone.
I would much rather
call or text.
Well, if I'm in a meeting, I won't take my phone.
Right.
So if I come back and see that there's a voicemail, I can respond to that. But if I come back and see a text, it's not always as easy. It's easier for me to ignore a text than it is a voicemail. Yeah. To me, a voicemail tends to be a bit more urgent than a text.
Definitely.
Maybe that's just a personal thing.
I agree.
But I would think it's very important to, well, it depends on who you're working with. If you know that a person will take their phone into a meeting and they can be texted, then do that. You might be able to get a better response. So I think the texting or the calling depends on who you are and who the other person is. Yeah.
I agree. So she says tweeting or even Facebook. I'm gonna have to disagree.
I'd say Facebook.
I say that would be last resort.
Yeah.
So kind of bad advice there. So the next one is the reply all. And I think we've all seen this happen quite a bit around here even.
Oh, it's a dangerous button.
So it says, when you have something to say directly to that person, just reply directly to that person. And then she puts a little anecdote story. Says she saw a Fortune 200 company have to shut down their email due to a company-wide reply all message run amok.
Oh no.
So just try to avoid it if it's possible.
And be very careful what you write before you click reply all.
That's true.
Just understand that everybody is going
in the
to
company
be in the company.
So the email to too many people, avoid sending the emails, she says, to more than 2 to 3 people. She said it creates confusion and clutters the inbox. And she also says never use blind carbon copy? So have you ever used it? Do you see any reason not to use it?
I used it with my students.
Okay.
When they were submitting their work to publishers, I wanted to be copied on it so that I could see they actually submitted it.
That makes sense.
That was a blind copy. I have blind copied, like if someone was going back and forth with me and it was escalating and I couldn't stop it, I would blind copy my supervisor so that they could see what was going on as kind of a heads up of, we need to be talking about this. Here's the paper trail.
Exactly.
For more of a record keeping for them as well. So, but be very, very careful about why you're doing a blind copy.
Don't use it vindictively.
No.
I've worked at another place that I saw that happening, and I, even at my young age, knew that was not the way that things should have been handled. So use it with discretion.
Very true.
The email to no one.
This was my favorite.
I know. It was kind of like, what? So it says, you send an email addressed to, let's say, 8 people, and you say, can someone please make sure and get this done? And what happens is that person thinks this person is doing it, and everyone assumes that someone else is going to do it, and it doesn't get done. So make sure that when you're sending an email, say, hey, so-and-so, can you do this? Instead of the overarching, can someone do this?
Exactly.
So the spam email, and I don't know if we want to call it spam, but I'll read what she says. People can find enough random stuff to surf on the internet. They don't need your topics as well. Passing along random articles, gossip, and websites only clutters up other people's inbox.
That's true.
To a degree, I definitely don't agree with the gossip. You should never send gossip through email. Don't gossip anyway in the workplace.
That's right.
But I think sometimes it depends on the culture of the company. And I think that like a funny story or video can strengthen bonds between maybe new employees who they're still kind of nervous.
It can, yeah. Again, it's the appropriate content.
Right.
It's not just here's a funny GIF or meme. It's the
tying it back.
Like for the content team, this is a fun quote that I saw from some famous writer. We can all agree, yeah. Or here's something funny for writers.
Like
the cartoon of where the party one where there's it's and it's where you put the apostrophe and they're all blindfolded, so it's pin the tail on the it's. So something like that could be okay, but you want to be be professional, be wise. And understand that it may not be just that person that ever only sees that email.
True.
A lot of companies have access to your emails and they can pull up anything.
Especially when it's a large company like that.
Exactly.
I do say it's a due to pass along useful resources and useful websites that you come across. I always appreciate them. So.
Yep. I find them very helpful.
Definitely.
Yep. The next article that I have to discuss is 5 challenges faced by women entrepreneurs, and that's from Business News Daily. It was just kind of, especially as we're launching into the new year, just kind of, okay, what resolutions do we want to have? What new acts and new attitudes do we want to, new habits do we want to put in place? And I thought this was a good one to just kind of get going again in
Yeah,
the year.
I agree.
So the first one is women entrepreneurs think they need to act like men. It says when women entrepreneurs have to talk business with primarily male executives, it can be intimidating. I was wondering, from your experience, have you experienced this being an intimidating thing for you? And how have you dealt with that?
I have been in situations where it was definitely the boys' club, and it was a little bit intimidating. But I didn't necessarily have the mindset of I need to act like a man. I had the mindset of, hey, I need to convey that I'm smart and I'm capable and I can get the job done.
Okay, so it wasn't like you felt like you had to mirror their actions or their
Not at
thought
all.
processes
No.
or anything like that. It was more of asserting yourself.
And I would look silly if I did anyway. So it's just, I can only be myself, and that's the best you're going to get from me.
I agree. And I really caution about having to think that you're going to have to act like a man. And it's you don't. You have to just act like who you are, be confident in your training, be confident that you have this job, and go in and get them. You can do this. But I know it can be very intimidating for a lot of people, especially if they aren't sure about what's going on or understand what the topic is of the meeting or understand where they're coming from. So the more you can educate yourself, the more you can process through, a lot less intimidating it can be. So the next one is women entrepreneurs are afraid of failure. And this was the big one. And I totally agree, especially as we're going into the new year. Women entrepreneurs are really, as they get started especially, and well, it doesn't just have to be women, it can be everybody. They're always afraid of failure. And whether you got off to a good start or it's a rocky start, you're always going to be afraid of what could happen next month.
Yep.
So this says, according to Babson College's 2012 Global Entrepreneur Monitor, the fear of failure is the top concern of women who launch startups. Failure is a very real possibility in any business venture, but Passy believes it shouldn't be viewed as negative. She says, you need to have massive failure to have massive success. You may need 100 no's to get one yes, but that one yes will make you more successful tomorrow than you were today. So I was wondering, how do you struggle with this fear of failure? It's a little more on the vulnerable side.
I know. Do I disclose all my information? I try and look at failure. It's only failure if you're not learning something from it. So if you fail, so what? Learn something from it and really take it and move forward with it. So that's my take on failure. I definitely used to kind of wallow in it a little bit and let it really affect me. But as I've gotten older and more sure of what I offer, the more I'm able to just kind of roll with it and just make it work in my favor. So.
Yeah, and I think with the fear of failure, it doesn't always have to be like, I'm going to lose my business. It could be, well, this investment didn't work out, or I'm going to lose the customer, or this product won't work.
Right.
There's so many different ways that failure can crop up, which is, I think, why it can be such a fear for us, because it's everywhere. It could be everywhere. So it's very tempting to be worrisome, to try to safeguard, try to avoid it, try to just play it safe, at least for this much longer, or at least for this much longer, until we get things figured out, kind of a thing. And while there is wisdom and freedom in taking risks, there's also a way to make sure that you're doing it in a wise way. So the article also says, work hard at ignoring that inner voice that may discourage taking action, speaking up, or getting outside your comfort zone. It's something I struggle with myself, but I know fundamentally that I wouldn't be a CEO today if I hadn't taken chances to assert myself. I really think that that's another way that we can overcome this fear, is that we just take that step. It's not always going to be easy.
Nope.
But
usually it's not.
Yeah. But if you just have confidence that this is going to be okay, and very rarely will you just ruin your business.
Right.
Just take a step. And in the books I've read, and the biographies I've read, and the people I've talked to, very rarely has it been something that they've never been able to recover from. So that's kind of how I take failure sometimes is, okay, we've learned, now how can we, one, prevent this in the future, but also how can we grow from this? And you avoid those mistakes again in the future. So it's that asserting and getting out of your comfort zone, and you can train yourself to do that. I think this is a learned skill. It's just those little steps, and it doesn't have to be huge jumps. It doesn't have to be a huge leap. It can be one baby step at a time until you are more assertive and more confident.
On days, that just reminded me, on days that I'm feeling maybe a little bit more insecure or unsure of myself, something that I tell myself, especially if I have to maybe overcome something or go out of my comfort zone, I just tell myself, okay, it just takes 10 or 20 seconds of courage. And if I can just make it through those 10 or 20 seconds, it'll be fine.
There you go.
It's just that getting started and getting over it. And it's never failed me. So.
There you go. It's that I love to have taken risks instead of I'm taking a risk now.
Yep.
So as we go into the new year, I really encourage you to look for those opportunities to get out of your comfort zone and overcome that fear. And let us know how it works out.
Okay, so this article is about things that we wear that you don't think other people notice, but they do. And I just want to come out and say that these articles and these don'ts that we're talking about aren't coming from a negative place. We aren't trying to make fun of people or point anyone out. They're actually, I think, good tips that we all can take away from. And we're all
very
just
applicable
trying
to us too.
Yeah, exactly. We related to some of them. And so let's go ahead. First one is the length of your pants, and we'll put up the article for you so you can actually see the images, but a good example they gave was someone had kind of baggy pants on with flats, and that speaks unprofessionalism.
So sloppy image.
Sloppy, unprofessional, yep. So make sure that if you're wearing dress pants, they just maybe skim the floor, or actually she says a ½ inch from the ground in the back is short enough that the hem doesn't drag on the floor. So that's the biggest thing, make sure your hem doesn't drag. The length of your sleeves, and I think she's more so talking about blazers.
Yeah, that's exactly where you see it the most.
And we talked about this. I said I didn't necessarily always catch that, and you said you saw some
It's usually I keep or pulling up or something. It's the
fidgeting.
Twitch that comes with having too long a sleeve.
So when you fidget, it kind of shows that you're nervous. It's a look that you don't want to convey. So watch your sleeves, have them taken in if you need to.
That's a very easy thing to do for a tailor. So.
And tailors are not very expensive nowadays. They're like $7 or something for something like that.
Used them real hot lately.
Worth it. The other one is gaping button-up shirts. So maybe it's just a little too tight and you decide to wear it anyway, and it has that hole in between.
A hole in between the buttons going.
Yes, and
it's very distracting actually.
It is. And so if you notice it in the mirror, and just don't walk out the door with it. Maybe put on a different shirt. Well-maintained shoes. So shoes are something that people don't think anyone looks at.
Especially if you have the slacks or a dress or something that is kind of covering it up enough.
Right.
Surely they won't notice that.
Yep. But actually, if you think about it, your feet are, if you cross your legs, are like what you lead with. So, of course, you're going to see them.
That's a very good point.
Actually, one of the guys that works here has... he has shoe polish and shoe shine, and they always pass it around and are shining up their shoes. And I think it's a good endearing quality that more people should do. Not wearing a belt, so maybe you have pants on with a shirt tucked in and you don't wear a belt. It just looks funny. It looks like something's missing, something's off, and it just feels more polished if you do have that belt on.
Doesn't have to hold anything up. It's kind of an accessory at that point.
Exactly. Yep. Appropriate accessories. So this says accessories can actually make the outfit. And you had a good example for this one.
My sister, when she first started her first job fresh out of college, her supervisor came to her and said, it wasn't criticizing or anything. She actually was complimenting her on how well she does conduct herself and her work ethic and everything. But then she had this one little recommendation of, if you added some jewelry more consistently to your wardrobe, it would just add an extra sparkle, an extra oomph to your professionalism, to your appearance.
Yeah.
So, and she's done it ever since, and
That's such great advice.
It's been really cool to see how it's either a necklace, a scarf, earrings, a bracelet, a different ring every so often. It's just something that just adds a little extra pop.
I know, yeah. And it's one of those things, again, that you don't think people notice, but they do, and it really ties your whole outfit together. Manicured nails was one she talked about. It's something, definitely don't have chipped polish. That would be my biggest pet peeve.
Yes. And if you know you're going to be, there was a conference that I would go to every year, and if I knew I was going to be handing out things, if I was going to be shaking hands,
or working at a trade show.
Yes, exactly. I'd even get the press on me or whatever they call them at the manicures. I can't remember the name, but just so that I knew that they were going to stay.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't have to worry about the polish. I didn't have to worry about anything happening, breaking a nail. It was just usually right there. So
I remember when I worked as a receptionist, I would feel the eyes come down and look at my nails. It was quite comical. So from then on, I was like, okay, you have my good nails. Another one is wet hair. So this kind of should be you should sort of know already, but even if you look good and your clothing and your makeup's all perfect, if you have wet hair, it's still going to look a little off,
It's going to look rushed in the
messy.
Morning, not put together. Yep.
And she actually says, it screams, look at me, I'm a mess. So just try and keep that hair dry. So the final one is the rest. When you head out the door, don't forget the final details. Make sure you're not storing hair ties on your wrists. Make sure that your perfume isn't overwhelming and that you don't have anything in your teeth. And I wanted to add, make sure that you have fresh breath. Nothing is worse than coffee breath. So that way you'll have great style, you'll feel confident, and you'll be able to give your best to your job.
Yep. The other thing is, just take a couple quick glances in the mirror or something before you go meet a client or go out on the floor if you're meeting with customers, and make sure that everything looks like it's supposed to. Like your hair didn't, somehow it didn't get flipped out
Sticking
somewhere.
straight up.
Exactly. I get those flyaways, just make sure that everything's looking good.
Definitely. And make sure and let us know what we're missing from this list. What are your guys' pet peeves? What do you notice on other people that maybe they don't think you notice? So talk to us, comment with us, and we'd love to hear back from you guys. So hopefully you guys learned some do's and don'ts today in the workplace, and make sure and check out some of our other little channels that we have. The Informe talks about everything social media, so very interesting stuff.
My content team also has a Meet the Writers, and we're discussing our articles or most recent articles with Nate Manahan here at Pay for Media, and it's just something that we just kind of discuss in further detail about what we've been writing about the certain topics. So if you are looking for other topics, certain topics that you don't see on Salcha.com, feel free to let us know, and we'll be happy to look into those again.
I would love to chat with you guys on Twitter. Make sure and follow me at Thought Kebabs.
And you can find me at Leilani SQ.
And we'll see you guys next time.